Welcome back again to my YouTube channel and thanks for joining. Today we're talking about something really interesting and very sensitive. So I want to put that disclaimer out there for anyone who, you know, would like to be aware of what we're discussing in this video. We're talking about an American YouTuber and his wife who made the decision over the weekend that they were going to abort their unborn child because of a tendency of that child having the trait of Down syndrome. Over the weekend, internet has been hot, so lots of opinions, people who are for and against the decision that they have made. In this video, we're going to talk about what I think, what the reality is like for people who have Down syndrome, what they face in society, why parents might want to make this decision, what alternatives are out there, and is this a decision that parents should make? We're going to talk about that in this video. But before we continue, let's take some reaction. There's a video I watched from Solomon Bucci who made a video about these YouTubers and how he thought it was a bad idea and how he feels like they do not have the right to kind of like take out the child because the child has Down syndrome. Well, before we play Solomon Butchi's video, I want to play the video of the parent making the announcement of how they decided or arrived at this decision. I'm going to play that video right now. Let's have a look.
Amended, pattern consistent with trisomy 21. Talked about terminating the pregnancy. Obviously, things could change because this was traumatic, like very traumatic. And I know you guys, even watching this, this is traumatic for the whole community. I think now that we have a definitive result, we'll talk with these counselors and we're going to have some hard conversations.
Typically, if the initial FISH result shows trisomy 21, the final full karyotype or microarray analysis also confirms it in more than 99% of cases.
The only thing I can say and do now is just breathe in and then breathe out. Good. Now we're gonna play Solomon Butchi's video. Solomon Butchi is a content creator. I follow him on Instagram. I enjoy his videos sometimes. Sometimes I disagree with the things he say, but I'm gonna play that video so we can watch it together and we can talk about it. Let's have a listen.
Must have seen the news of this YouTube influencer couple who aborted their child on discovering that he has a Down syndrome diagnosis. And at the foundation, the very basis of the argument a lot of people are making is the idea of eugenics. What is the difference between you and Adolf Hitler if you think that a child does not deserve to live just because they have a genetic disorder? This idea of wanting children that have desirable traits because of the kind of life you have envisaged for them, that is not compassion. That is control. That is you playing God. Every life is created and formed in the image of God. A child with Down syndrome is not less of a child, and this is the very idea of eugenics, that humans with less desirable traits should be killed. And if you are supporting the killing of children with Down syndrome, then it's very okay. It's very okay for, say, a white person to support the killing of black children because they think that black children are genetically inferior, that the black race is inferior. If you support the idea that we should decide who lives and who is murdered, then what is the basis of that decision? And this is not to deny the difficulty of raising a child with a disability. It is going to be hard. I'm not saying it's an easy decision to make, but we cannot justify killing children just because they have a disability. Because number one, you are playing God, you are deciding who gets to live, and you are desecrating the sanctity of human life. God told Jeremiah, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you and I made you a prophet. Especially as Christians, I'm seeing Christians saying, well, it's an act of mercy, it's an act of compassion. If you believe that every human life should be treated equally, irrespective of their skin color, why do you not believe that about babies, irrespective of their disability? Every single human life has inestimable value and dignity, not because of our skin color, not because of our health conditions, not because of where we live, not because of our race, not because of what other people think of us, because we were created in the image of God. If you murder a baby because it's not a perfect baby, whatever perfection means to you, then you don't deserve to be a parent. You should not be a parent. Rest in peace to that little boy. It's so sad that your parents did not find you perfect enough to live.
I kind of like the point he made in this video, but the comparison between like white people, that I just don't think that's a perfect description or perfect comparison to make. But I kind of like the point he raised in this video, and I love the fact that he spoke from a biblical point of view, and that just supersedes every and any other thing. because I'm a Christian myself. And before we move on, I just want to say that I personally, Down syndrome or not, I believe that every child should have a shot at life. No child should be denied, access to life or whatever that is. You guys may call it pro life, pro choice. I don't think that's what it's called these days, but I don't care. I don't use those labels. Anyways, I just feel like everybody, child or not child, every human deserves a shot at life. We are all adults. We can do whatever we want, but that is how I feel, and that's what I think. When we talk about Down syndrome, it's very quite niched. So I think most people would not approach that conversation the same way they will approach like regular abortion. And I understand and I see why. With this couple, what I found is that they were expecting a child. They wanted a child. I watched a video on the YouTube where they made an announcement, finding out how, they're expecting a baby. Such a beautiful moment. They were excited, so happy. And now they got the results and they found out that this child is going to have Down syndrome. And then they made that difficult. I must think it's a very difficult decision that they wanted to remove the child. And ever since then, I've been reading comments, listening to people's stories, watching people's stories, actually reading stories, and I found out that so many other parents also were told that their child will have Down syndrome, and it turns out that they didn't. They came out like, just like every other person. And so it makes me, now that I sit and I think, and I'm wondering, imagine removing a child because you thought they were going to have Down syndrome, and then it turns out that they didn't at the end of the day. That would be so messed up. Now let's get into the reason why some parents or some families will choose to make this decision. I'm not gonna just sit here and tell you, oh, it is wrong to do it, or da 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 da. I want us to actually look at both sides. Parents will choose to make this decision for several reasons. The reasons I can think of is how they'll be received and treated in society, the financial resources or whatever requirements it will take to raise a child like this, how that child will, cope in society. I don't know a lot of people with Down syndrome, but I don't know them personally, but like I have seen a few. In my village, I remember there's this girl who had Down syndrome and she was treated like an odd one in the family. Like, oh, this is not an ordinary child. She's like this because of this, that, because someone in the family did something wrong. So it was like, oh, this child is not ordinary. It's like a punishment. They saw it as an abomination, as an abominable child. So it is a reality that children who have Down syndrome in some part of the country, in some part of the world, maybe like in Africa or some other continent, are not treated nicely. Society look down on them. Society do not receive them. They do not view them as normal humans. Look at your workplace. How many people with Down syndrome do you know there? Maybe I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know if they have they are capable of performing duties like every other person. I don't know what that looks like. Oops. But look at your workplace. Look around you. How many people do you know? And when you see them, how do you treat them? In some part of the world, like I mentioned earlier, in Africa and some other countries, they are not treated nicely. So when you see people being treated poorly, you do not want your child or your loved one to be in that position. And then this boils down to you and us. How do we treat people who have Down syndrome? Do we treat them like, normal people, like how you treat your normal people, your friends and family? Do you disregard them? Do you just brush them because, oh, they don't look normal to you? I think if you are guilty of that or you've done that in the slightest way, you are part of the reasons why these parents make those decisions. You're part of the reason why these parents see it as an option to say, oh, I want to abort this child because they have Down syndrome or because they are going to have Down syndrome. Because society, people treat them poorly. We need to accept it that people do that. I gave you an example of the girl in my village. Like, she's allowed, they don't even take care of her. You see her, she's drooling, she's just like messy, she's on the street, like no. So I don't blame parents who make this decision. And some parents, I think they are also ignorant. If you grow up in a country, maybe somewhere in Africa or other part of the world, I'm saying Africa because that's where I'm from, other part of the world where there is no access, no proper education on how to care or cater to children with Down syndrome, or maybe sometimes it costs you a lot financially, and you're in that position, and you're like, oh, I can afford to do this. Sometimes they make that decision to kind of like remove the baby because they can barely feed, and now, bless me, and now they have a child with Down syndrome, and they have to find a way to, give them proper care. In that case, it can be expensive, and it's gonna seem like an extra burden to the family. So in most cases, I'm giving you the reasons why people would in turn take that route. Some people may feel like, oh, it's a lot of work, it's gonna cost me a lot, it's gonna require a lot of attention. That is part of so many reasons. Sometimes it could be money, society, how society receives the children. There's a lot of reasons why parents take that route. Regular children or children with special needs in the society, again, we as society, we have an obligation to treat people nicely. That's the least that we can do. So you see the contributing factor. But in the case of these celebrities, these YouTubers, I don't think money was a problem. They can afford to give that child the best care, get nannies, get help. But they probably thought it was an extra burden. Now I'm imagining people who have Down syndrome, imagine coming online to learn that some people are aborting their children because they look like you or they would turn out like you. I can imagine how heart-shattering or heartbreaking that would be for them. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't understand people who make that decision. But then again, I still believe and I still feel like those children need to have a shot at life. Maybe even the government can do better services for children who turn out having Down syndrome or other special needs. I know that in some part of the world, in Canada, for example, there is help available. I don't know if this is the same in other countries or in other part of the world, but I think government can also step up so that parents will not have to take that route. Now, I think the next big question is, what will I do if I was in that situation? Honestly, even though I've told you that I believe every child needs to have a shot at life, I'm not going to come out here and tell you that the easiest thing for me to do is to say, I'm going to keep the child. That is the most convenient answer to give you guys right now. But I'm going to tell you guys for real how I feel. I think it's a tough, very, very tough situation to be in when you've considered everything that I've said. The financial burden, I don't want to call it a burden, the financial requirement, how society will receive and treat your child, how they will cope. When you think about all of that, I think that is a very hard situation to be in as a parent. Not just the fact that it's not just wrestling with, oh, should I keep or should I not keep? It's just accepting the fact that this child of mine coming to the society will not be treated like every other person. I think that's the hardest part of it. Accepting that part of it, not even the decision to keep the child. I think it's just accepting and knowing that if this child makes it, this is going to be the reality of that child. I think that's the tough part of this all, if I were to be in this position. And I think that's the toughest part, knowing that there are people out there who would think less of my child because they have this Down syndrome. And that's why earlier I said we as a society, we need to do better. There's a lot of people insulting them, calling them murderers. They even put out this post saying that people have been vile to them. There's a lot of people who are actually against this, and that is good to know that you guys think that people who have Down syndrome should be alive and should live. Now, next challenge, treat them well. Be good, be nice to them when you come across them. It's not just about ranting on social media, trying to look good online, trying to, uphold the fancy of the religious teachings or what the Bible says. It's good to obey that. But you have work to do. You have to treat them nicely. You have to be better to people with special needs. So the way you are out there calling it wrong, which I'm not going to fault you for, I want you guys to be nice to them when you come across them in real life. That is my challenge to you. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I want to know, what are your thoughts in this comment? You see the way I came here, I didn't come to insult them and say, hey, you're a murderer for deleting your child. I've broken this down, so I don't want anyone coming to insult me in the comment saying I'm supporting these people. I've told you guys what I think I will do in that situation, or rather how I will feel if I'm in that situation. But I just wanted us to break this down and not be one of those people who just approach with insult. Let us break it down, talk about the reality of this. So I want to know what your thoughts are in the comments. And thanks you so much for watching this video. And I will see you guys again in my next video. Bye.